welcome to part 2 of the Uncharted Waters presentation from Franklin Templeton. My name is Josh Mays. I'm a financial advisor with CUSO at Wright-Patt Credit Union. And today we're going to talk about what goes on in our heads and with our emotions when it comes to investing. And the first part, just to recap a little bit, we went through what happened last year during the market sell-off after coronavirus came about, and some of the Fed responses to that and some monetary policy. So today we'll go through how that affects us emotionally. This is a pretty common illustration or talking point on a lot of different subjects, but fight or flight. So last year in 2007, 2009, the dot-com bubble, during these different dramatic market sell-offs, most people have one of a couple different responses. They will either fight, so they might stay in the market, or even add money as it drops, or they will pull all the money out and go into cash, which would be the flight. So when you go into cash, you sell your holdings and you might take the money and put it in the bank, or you might, inside of a 401k or IRA account, you might sell your stock or bond holdings and move into the money market account, which is similar to a cash position. So when we see all the red numbers on the screen, maybe the news outlets are frequently reporting how much the markets are going down, that can really get into our emotions and elicit a response from us that might not be in our best interest. It just maybe triggers a reaction. So anchoring is when we typically focus on one piece of information, or we focus on one emotion that might get us astray or cause us to make a decision in a silo or in a vacuum and not consider all of the relevant financial information. So Franklin Templeton did a survey with investors. They asked them, what do you think your returns will be over the next 5 years? Most investors said 10%, but the actual return was 20%. And this again just goes to illustrate that they did another survey where they asked investors, what do you think your return will be? The average return for the S&P was about 8%. So everyone kind of projected out 8% would be their future return. But if they only aimed for 8%, they would have missed out on extra returns and would have lost about $72,000 based on this calculation. So loss aversion, risk aversion, these are emotions that we go through and feelings we have that can elicit a very strong response from us. If we see all the red on the screen again, if we see our investment account dwindling very rapidly, that can really elicit a very strong emotional response from people, because you've worked for 10, 20, 30, 40 years to save that money. And then all of a sudden one day you see it just disappearing for reasons that you might not understand, or the world is crashing, or whatever the reason might be, whatever media is telling you, you're bombarded with information. So you might sell and go into the money market position we talked about earlier. So during the two most recent sell-offs we had, the large recession, not including the one in 2020, but the dot-com bubble and the global financial crisis, we saw about 491 billion and 943 billion move from investments into cash. And that was done strictly out of fear and risk aversion. But that actually has a really high cost, because as you can see here, the average money market yield across the nation is about 0.15%. And when you adjust that for inflation, it actually becomes negative. Those numbers might actually look worse in the future, depending on what happens with inflation over the next few years. We're starting to see it tick up a little bit here at the moment. That might just be transitory inflation, or it might stick with us. We're not exactly sure yet. So thank you for tuning in on the second part of our presentation. Living with volatility will be the third part of our presentation. Hope to see you again for that one, and have a great day.